Yeah, I wanted to just talk a little bit about connecting to last week, connecting to the Chinese farmer video,
Mm-hmm.
and you know how in contrast that video message is compared to my attitude last week, okay, when I spoke to you about the horrific blood test results. And just remind you about the video, just as an introduction, because it resulted in interesting thinking on my part, okay, and that's why. And the farmer, it was, let's say, the Chinese farmer one day lost his horse. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And all his friends came around and sympathized with him and said, I'm sorry, you know, you lost your horse. And he said, maybe. The next day, the horse returned with 7 wild horses. And so the friends came around and said, wow, you are so lucky, okay? And he said, maybe. Okay. Then the next day, his son was starting to tame the wild horses, okay, and he broke his leg. So the friends came around and said, oh, so sorry to hear that your son's broken his leg. So the Chinese farmer said, maybe. Okay. The next day, the army arrived at the farmers and wanted to recruit the son into the army to go and fight. But he had a broken leg, so the army wouldn't take him. So the friends came around and said, wow, you're so lucky, okay. And he said, maybe. Okay, anyway, so that really, because then I started thinking about my attitude towards my blood sugar results, Don. That you know, if it had been the farmer, okay, you know, and he had his high blood sugar levels and so on, what he would have said was, well, you know, I'm not going to die, maybe, okay. So I asked myself, why was I so stressed with my poor, bad blood sugar tests? Why was I so desperate to get my blood sugar levels normal? The bottom line was fear. It invoked fear in me. And what was I fearful of? Fearful of dying? Fearful of having a heart attack? Having a stroke, another stroke? You know, and if it was a fear of death, you know, the mere fact that it was a fear, why am I fearful of death? Okay, and why did it invoke that stressful situation in me?
I was going to ask you, did you by any chance see that email from Douglas Rushkoff this morning?
No, I haven't looked. I don't think I receive emails anymore from him. I'm not sure, but I haven't looked at the emails today. I've had my head down. I had a class, and then I had my head down preparing another class for Friday.
Because I'll just, if you don't mind,
Sure.
just where you're at, just read a paragraph out of that email. Okay, so it says here, on a personal level, a whole lot of people I know, including myself, have undergone a palpable shift over the past few months. A reckoning, a hitting bottom, an acceptance of what we cannot change, but also a realization of what we can. He says there's a great Jewish prayer. It's a medieval poem written during the worst of times and rampant oppression and murder, a real hopeless period called the, I can't even pronounce that, but anyway. It's the one that explains that between the two high holy days, God writes down very awful thing that's going to happen to everyone in the book of life. So he says, who shall live and who shall die? Who shall perish by water and who by fire? Who by sword and who by wild beast? And then Rushcroft goes on and says, awful, hopeless stuff decreed by God, and there's nothing you can do about it. But at the very end of the prayer, it says we can lessen the severity of the decree through, and there's a Jewish, like Hebrew phrase there, which they like to translate as prayer and righteousness. But altogether, it is really just soulfulness, devotion, and compassion. We can't change what's going to happen, but we can change how we experience it if we go through it together with compassion. And then his email goes on and on about a whole lot of other stuff. But so it kind of, in some ways, has a lot of parallels with your Chinese farmer.
Yeah, it does. What he said, you and I have been really saying for a long time, and how you look at something.
Yeah.
But I want to go in a different direction. Because I guess I can see the link to how you look at something. With it, but why? I think. Sorry, I'll just pick up fear, and so the blood test results invoked a fear in me, and I found an answer. Okay, and the answer was double my medication. Introduce the medication that I'd weaned myself off. So in that moment of that, in that decision that I decided to do those things, I was totally in the grips, in the hands of the pharmaceutical. Through fear, I had linked myself totally and utterly to the materialistic, consumeristic, pharmaceutical, whatever you want to. I can't think of a good word as this.
Do you think that the pharmaceutical promise is a cure?
Well,
they never overtly say it as such, do they?
Yeah, but that's irrelevant in a way, Don, because it's a promise for a healthier living. It's a promise to get better. It's a promise that you don't necessarily have to die. Okay, but by listening to that the Chinese farmer, I thought, so what? I know that where we go into. I know that we're not going to actually die, and I realized, that through, there's only one thing that you and I and we totally agree on this and have for many years, is that we are consciousness, okay? And our mind doesn't belong to us. We had a conversation before about this. The mind belongs to something else, okay? It doesn't belong to us. And the thoughts that come and the fears that are generated are not me anyway. And so my thinking in this period, because I had totally bought into the pharmaceutical cure, okay, then I heard this poem or this video or whatever it is, okay, and I thought, so what if I die today? Like, you know, what does it matter? What am I scared of? What am I fearful of? Because my consciousness will continue, okay? And I'll get onto another dimension, and things will be very clear for me. But they, as clear as they are now, everything that's happening to me is like it's been written or happening on a screen, okay, of my consciousness. There's my consciousness, yeah, and here we are. Blood tests and pharmaceuticals and people around me dying and having medical accidents and all these things are on a screen of my consciousness, but it's not me, okay? And yeah, it was like a real wake-up call. You know, it's so easy to pay lip service to spiritual things, okay, and then comes the real stuff, the real test, like I had, okay, and what did all the belief systems and the verbal garbage that you know I've spoken about with spiritual this and spiritual that, and that sort of all falls out of the window, okay? So for me, it's been a hell of a wake-up call just the last few days, this past week. And you know, I think to myself, well, why am I taking the medication? Why am I doubled my medication? Okay. You know, is it going to lengthen my life? And is that what I want? If I do, it's only because of fear of some description. I don't know. So it's really been a movement. There's definitely been a massive movement in me in just the last couple of days, even hours. Yeah, quite profound. I don't know what your take is on what I've experienced and what.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like, because I guess in a similar but different way, you know, like when I've found myself being stressed or upset about something, you know, like part of my morning prayer, you know, not through that, you know, Chinese farmer example, but part of a realization that I had was similar in the sense that, you know, that if I'm, you know, if you visualize I'm there walking with God, you know, in my morning walk, you know, it's all very interesting to be praying about something that's happened or something that you think might happen or something that you want in the future. But there was, you know, one morning there recently where the question just arose with me is, well, what do you want right now? You know, and it was sort of a bit like yourself, a bit of a wake-up call because, you know, all of the thinking was either about the past or the future, not about where I am right now, you know.
Right.
And so all of that thinking was sort of shaping what decisions I was making or how I felt about things, emotions that I was experiencing or whatever. But as soon as that realization came about, well, what do you want right now? It was just a total release and relaxation. It was just, a joyous feeling of, just communing and not having to worry about the future and not having to think about the past, but just be there right now.
Right. Right.
And in some ways, perhaps you could interpret the Chinese farmers' actions as a similar thing. It's not worried about the future and not worried about what's happened yesterday.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
It's just about, okay, well,
maybe
where are we at now? Yeah.
Not good, it's not bad.
No.
Okay.
No, just is.
Horse, it's not good, it's not bad.
Yeah.
Okay. More horses arrived, it's not good, it's not bad.
And that's the thing, it's just what has showed up today.
It's what showed up today. Yeah. Yeah. Quite profound. Quite profound.
And very poignant too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's a good reminder, I think, of when you stop and reflect, it's like, well, how much time do I actually think about things in the future or reflect on things in the past? And how much time do I just spend right now enjoying the sunrise and the sight of the stars above and
the full moon?
The full moon or the gentle breeze or whatever, it's just,
But, yeah. But mine has been about my reaction. Okay? And we talk about closing doors. Now, that fear that I had in me when the doctor told me my results, spontaneously, I'm in his office. I only by hindsight, when I thought about it, it was fear. I didn't think of, I'm fearful now. I just said, we must double the dose of things. And he agreed. And he said, you must carry on for the rest of your life. You must have these pills. You could, and he said, you could have a heart attack any minute. Okay. Your high cholesterol levels. And of course, my wife was sitting next to me. And so it was how I react to what shows itself on my consciousness screen. Okay? Because that's all he was. There wasn't a reality in that situation as we understand the word reality. Okay? It was just a play out on the screen. So it's how I react and how you react to circumstances, maybe in your day-to-day life or when something unusual happens, other than routine, ordinary things. Maybe when a customer pisses you off, okay, why are you pissed off? Okay. Okay. And why are you reacting like that? Why do I react like that? I understand now. Understand very clearly now.
So what's changed for you?
You mean what actions have I taken, or what you say? What's changed for me? You didn't answer my question. I gave you an alternative. I think ask me that question when I've had something that confronts me in my day-to-day life that I have to react to. Okay. But certainly, there is no logic to hanging on to all the pharmaceutical links that I have in my day-to-day life. Okay. And if I did, I've got to ask myself why. Why am I hanging on to them?
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Did he give you any advice about things like diet or anything like that, or not really? It was just, here, I can write this prescription for you.
Yeah, that's it. No. Not ever has a GP given me any advice on diet. I mean, they don't understand diet. They don't know diet. Okay, they don't get trained about diet. Okay, so they are just in the claws of the pharmaceuticals, and how they sponsor and what they learn at university is sponsored by the pharmaceuticals. So, but whether that statement of mine is true or false, it's one of the things that has interested me, and I've written about and I report, is diet. Like, I am sufficiently knowledgeable about diet to know what I should eat. Okay?
Yeah.
Not only scientifically, but also from the response of my body. Okay? And it's quite interesting if you listen to your body and listen to its responses. Okay. Now, historically, besides being knowledgeable about and have written about food and diet and things, I've still historically taken drugs, pharmaceutical drugs.
So when you say pharmaceutical drugs, like, do you mean like prescription drugs, or
like metformin for blood sugar?
Okay.
Yeah, prescription drugs. You see, I know that, I can see it when I just chat to people after my classes on Get Set Up and so on, that they ask me questions that I can answer, okay? But it's interesting that they ask the questions, okay? I think the analogy that came to my mind, and I've mentioned it now, that really works well, is that all these things are happening on my screen of consciousness. It's not me. It's out there. It's out there. It's away from me. It's part of our.
And sometimes it's, when you ask yourself, it's even hard to discern, especially when you reflect back on things that you perceive happened to you in the past, and sometimes you can't even say, well, did that really happen like that? Is my memory failing me, or like?
Yeah, true. It's really interesting. I guess people could respond in such a way, well, maybe I shouldn't worry about what I eat. Okay, maybe I should just eat, the tastiest, junkiest food that is available.
Well, yeah, but I think that's like me saying, oh, you know, when I drive to work tomorrow morning, I'm not going to worry about those traffic lights. They're just a waste of time.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. No, that's true. You know, we've got a vehicle, and we need to look after it and give it good fuel. You couldn't put water in your car. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's that, and you know, and again, depending on you know, your relationship with the divine. You know, we're told quite emphatically that it's a temple. You know, that it's a sacred place. You know, so so it's not just the tent that we're living in or the bus that we're driving. It's much more than that. You know, so
yeah. Yeah.
And I think that, you know, for each and every one of us, it becomes a personal inquiry, doesn't it? You know.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, you know, some people say, I don't believe in that stuff. You know, like I think you've got a brother who's like, oh yeah, whatever. You know, but I think notwithstanding what any of us say or what we've read or what we believe or whatever, each and every one of us needs to make that inquiry and make up our mind about it, don't we, really?
Yeah.
You know, it's that, you know, if you're passionate about seeking the truth, whatever you perceive the truth to be, then you can't lie to yourself about that.
So if your motor car that you drive to work breaks down, do you fix it?
I set fire to it. Yeah.
Okay. What happens to your body when your body breaks down, gets cancer, let's say?
Yeah.
You set fire to it.
Well, that's one option. Yeah. But I think there's a number of ways that you could look at it, and I've pondered that question from time to time. You know, like especially when I've, you know, someone I know, you know, gets sick, you know, with a big terminal illness or something like that, and I was kind of think to myself, well, how would I react? And I'm not sure how I would react. You know, like you know, like at this stage, if I was diagnosed with a terminal illness, you know, would I? And you always hear this language, people talking about, will I fight it? You know, or will I, you know, accept it, or will I yield to it, or I mean, you know, how do you respond? And again, I guess that's a personal decision. You know, some people fight it to the death. You know, and that's a personal choice. You know?
Talking not about third parties, we're talking about you and I. Okay. You know, and if you had asked me maybe in the past how I would have reacted if suddenly my cholesterol levels had jumped up to a dangerous level, you know, I don't know how I would have responded to you. Okay. But now I've experienced it. It's become part of my reality. Okay. This third dimension. Yeah, it really, it's so I can now talk about it from my experience. Okay. Otherwise, we're talking just ad hoc. Okay.
Abstract. Yeah.
Yeah. So, have you had any illnesses in the past few years that have worried you or you've taken medication for?
No, not really. No. But I have reflected about life generally a lot, you know, through my mother's passing, you know, and looked at life from many different contexts, you know, with that in the background. You know, like for example, you know, I've reflected on how would I feel, you know, that if I was 90 odd years old and was losing my faculties and my ability to care for myself and all of those things, you know, would I fight that? Would I just say, no, I'm not accepting this, I'm going to kill myself, I'm not going to do this? Or do I just accept it? You know, I've also thought about it in the context of, you know, if she got to 93 years of age and, you know, just reflected on her life, you know, and things that happened in her life. And so, you know, like I've had these thoughts during my early morning walk that I sort of think to myself, well, there's things that I've done in the past, you know, that I perceive to be, you know, being successful or being the right thing to do, or geez, that was a really bad decision. But in the light of reflecting from that sort of context, my mindset has changed, not so much now about, oh, you know, here's my bucket list and these are the things I want to do, or these are the things that I have to achieve or whatever, to just accepting that I'll just see what shows up today.
Yeah, but you through what you've just said, you said that you contemplate. No, you didn't use the word contemplate, but this same word. Okay, you think about in relation when you go for your walk, and you know, what would happen if I did this or I did that, and so you, in my opinion, if I can. You're playing mind games with your mind, and your mind isn't yours. Okay, so you're playing all these what if games, but you say you verbally pay homage to the now. Okay, but you're constantly thinking, what if this happened to me, or if I was 90, or you know, and I was going deaf, if I was going deaf. You're creating all these games, or allowing your mind to create all these games, and you're not talking about practical experience of something or other of today, or that you've actually experienced. And I think that is a trap that we've got to be careful with. And you know, when I say I contemplate, for example, I'm going to revisit that, and think now, what in actual fact, although I'm contemplating, let's say, what is God, or I'm contemplating that flower, I don't contemplate what I'm going to do in the future. Okay, I don't set goals for myself or whatever.
I think the nuance for me, and it's based in what I perceive to be a very powerful scripture, is that when I think about my relationship to my Creator, there's lots of things that I can desire, and there's lots of things that I can, you know, maybe what's the best word to use? Seek in terms of outcomes or whatever. But when it comes down to it, you know, that simple phrase of, you know, not my will but your will be done.
Powerful.
Yeah, and I see that much more than a mind game, in the sense that it is kind of like a reflection of taking stock of where I'm at right now. It's like, okay, well, these are the feelings and emotions and the thoughts I have bubbling away inside of me. And I can name all of those things. But having named them, it's the next stage of naming them isn't, so can you please deliver on that list for me? It's a recognition of, okay, even though I'm feeling these things and having these thoughts and experiencing these emotions, the most important thing to me at the core of my very being is not my will, but your will.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't take that, well, I haven't viewed that as an abstract. I think that for me, it's a daily reminder in one sense, but it just reinforces to me that, you know, don't get ahead of yourself. You know, don't keep looking over your shoulder. Just be here now. And I think that, you know, when you overlay that approach to, oh, gee, I've got a terminal illness, like what's going to happen this afternoon or tomorrow, or I might have a heart attack, or stuff the diet, I'm just going to go and eat, drink and be merry, and I'm going to, you know, throw the relationships out the window, I'm going to go and have a good time, or, you know, like...
Or you're going to stuff yourself with a whole lot of pharmaceuticals to get better?
Yeah, or whatever. You know, for me, I think that, you know, all of that mind game, because that is kind of a mind game, you know, and for me, it also sits on a platform of arrogance to say, you know, I know better. You know, so,
do you think that it's a cop-out to say, thy will be done, thy will be done? Okay?
Oh, no, not for me in that sense, because...
The ability that you were put here...
yeah, no, but for me, my realisation is I actually don't know. Even when I reflect on my life, all some of these decisions I made, it's like, holy hell, what on earth was I thinking? Why did I think that was a good idea? You know, like, and I don't mean that in a self-deprecating sense. It's just like, because we've all done it. You know, it's like, oh, geez, what was I thinking? You know, but then I think, you know, for me, hard on the heels of that comes some realizations. You know, a bit like, you know, the way the Chinese farmer story has had a profound impact on your view of pharmaceuticals, for example. You know, so. And I don't see that as a mind game. I think that's a grounding with reality. I think reality or truth. You know, that's the truth of the matter. Because, you know, I'm about to be quite judgmental in the sense of, you know, when it comes to pharmaceuticals, and that was kind of the loaded question I asked you before, like, oh, what's the pharmaceutical promise? Well, there is no promise. It's just a freaking lie. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a lie.
Yeah. You know, and then you could challenge yourself, well, how do you know it's a lie? Well, I don't, and that's the point. I don't know it's a lie, and I don't know it's the truth, but what I'm sensing is that, you know,
what drives, see, what it was fear that drove me.
Oh, for sure, and I think that's their promise is on a bus of fear. If you don't do this, boy, oh boy, Michael, you're in for a tough time.
And fear closes doors.
It does. Fear is a subtractive process.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, because I've seen Sadhguru come up in a couple of feeds. I haven't sort of actively watched some of his stuff for a little while now, but a couple of his feeds have come up, and he just makes the statement. He says, if you can transcend fear, at the other side of that, you won't have any emotion whatsoever.
Say that again. What about fear?
If you can transcend fear.
Transcend. Okay, that was the word.
Yeah. If you can transcend fear, on the other side of that, he doesn't use those words, but he basically says you won't experience any emotion at all.
That's so interesting.
I'm not sure I fully understand it, but.
Well, I've got something to relate to, you know, my experience. And so, and the big thing is the stem of fear. You know, what's it rooted in? Okay, and I think I can only now I'm using my mind in order to, and I have been the last couple of days.
Permission granted.
Say again.
Permission granted. Because it is quite a wonderful mind. Don't beat yourself up on it. But anyway.
Yeah. I think, you know, do I actually subconsciously fear death? Okay. And I pay verbal homage to
death, or even uncertainty for that matter.
Yeah.
But see, the other thing that I kind of wonder about, and this is one of the perhaps nuances about that comment of Sadhguru that I don't quite understand, because for me that I feel that when there are no barriers between me and the divine, you know, so when I'm in consolation, I just experience overwhelming love. So if I'm experiencing overwhelming love, my assumption is that, well, there's no room for fear in that realm. So yeah, I find it hard to understand how you can experience no emotion. And maybe that's just because my level of awareness hasn't been developed to the same extent, perhaps. I don't know.
No, I wouldn't. I go along with you. I think possibly what comes to my mind at this moment is that Sadhguru was probably talking about negative emotions. Okay, so overcome fear, and then you won't have negative emotions. Not that you won't have feelings of
joy or bliss or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that and I suppose I'll ask the question. So, is it a volitional issue? Is it something that we get to choose?
Yes, it is. I mean, I sitting in front of the doctor and going along with what he's talking about and coming away, and I chose that. Okay, and it was maybe it still is just my natural reaction. Okay, which is part of your choice. Okay. And there was a precursor to sitting in front of the doctor, and that was going for the blood tests. Okay, why am I going for the blood tests? Okay, I expected them all to be fine. That was my expectation. Okay. But why do I go for the blood tests in the first place? Why did I agree to go every year to have blood tests? I don't know.
And they're day-to-day life questions, aren't they? You know, because if I've got a toothache, like I have to be careful that the mind doesn't want to play a game that says, "Ah, you're just imagining it."
Yeah, but do you take a painkiller? Okay.
Mm.
You go to the dentist and have it removed. Okay.
Mm. Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
Good question.
Mm. Yeah, no, so they, and that's why I guess in one sense it's very easy, perhaps. I don't know if easy is the right word, but it's very easy to say, oh, well, under this hypothetical circumstance, because I'm not experiencing a terminal illness, or that I'm aware of, oh, maybe I am. Oh, what was that? But I'm a healthy person, so oh yes, I'm not frightened of death at all, you know. And yet, if the doorway to death, you know, the path that leads to the doorway of death involves excruciating pain and nausea and the inability to sleep and the inability to keep food in your stomach, is that just fear? you know? No, it probably isn't. I mean, fear is probably standing there in the shadows saying, hey, you know, you should be frightened of what's going to happen next. But
maybe you are. Maybe we are, and I was. Fear.
Oh, I mean, like, you know, when, as you say, like when the GP says, oh, Michael, you could have a heart attack at any moment.
Yeah.
You know, you say, oh, well, thanks for the cheery advice.
Yeah. But I'm not going to do anything. Could have been a reaction. Okay.
You know, I mean, so it's, you know, we need to be careful that we're not trite about it either, because I mean, they're significant things, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, just, yeah. So, you know, I think it's important that we do exactly as you've been doing, I think.
Mm.
You know, really asking yourself, wow, well, you know, what's really going on here?
Yeah.
What's really going on here, you know? Okay, I had some bad, you know, seemingly bad results, but to use the Chinese farmers things as well maybe.
Yeah. You really must go and listen to it again.
Yeah,
Because it's, I'd be interested if it has still the same effect that it had on me.
And it's an interesting question to even just pose to yourself, you know. Michael, you could have a heart attack, you know, at any moment. Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe. Let's get on with now.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not feeling a heart attack at this very moment, so yeah.
Yeah. And I know that I look after my vehicle as best as my knowledge allows me to. And so maybe.
And on your way out of the doctor's surgery, a car could have run off the road and up the footpath, and you know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's. Yeah.
I mean, we don't know, do we? We don't know. But it's a very profound way to look at, you know, because I think in one sense, you know, what the Chinese farmer is saying, well, don't be too quick to attach meaning to what's just happened, you know.
Yeah, exactly what he was saying. You know, just maybe. Maybe. Okay. Shame, poor you. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe. Okay. Yeah. And you know, I've got to just not really change the subject, but tell you about another event. Okay? A different context. Okay. Much. Yeah. This past week. Okay. A guy by the name of Leon, who is a grandfather of few of the children that are in Sue's school. Okay. So I guess.
Is this the guy who did the repairs to your car?
Yeah, absolutely that. Okay. He emigrated here from South Africa. Okay. 20 years ago. Okay, and settled down here. And then out of that, we didn't ask for it. Okay. And through the kids and the one, his daughter is actually also, when she's not pregnant, a teacher at the same school. Okay, so they know what's going on with the car. I mean, when you start seeing canvas on the tires and the car won't start for 6 months, and then out of the blue, he does what he did. I mean, all you can do is say thank you, which I did. I sought him out and went and said. So,
and it was definitely an act of compassion too, wasn't it? Like it was.
Maybe. Sorry, you can take that if you want to answer that.
Well, I think it was. I think he was motivated by compassion and kindness. I don't think. Well, I mean, I don't know the man, but I would be very surprised if it was motivated by, gee, I'll look good if I do this.
No, just that was it. He actually sent the people to the car park where the cars parked at school. One day to change the tires, the next day to service, and so on. Okay, and that was it. Okay, we don't know how much it cost him. Nothing at all. Nothing was dealt through us, and it was, really probably one of the biggest kinds of acts of kindness that either of us have experienced. So
it's quite a blessing for sure.
Yeah, but regardless what the neighbors might come and say, "Wow, you lucky." Maybe.
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 That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Goodness me.
So true.
Maybe it's a place to stop.
I think it is. Well, as always, it's good to chat.
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much.
Likewise.
I'm glad I was able to share that.
No, me too. Me too.
All right.
Okay, then. Let's talk to you next weekend. Okay, bye.
Okay, cheers.